My name is Mila Smith. I'm 31, a schoolteacher, and for most of my adult life I carried a quiet certainty that I had managed to build something steady and enviable, a sweet, healthy daughter, a modest but peaceful home in suburban Oregon, and a husband I believed was solid, dependable, a man who anchored our lives. That morning, sunlight poured through the kitchen window, spilling golden warmth across the counters and floor. Emma, just 2, sat in her booster chair with her curls messy from sleep, her tiny fists gripping a spoon too big for her hand. Milk dripped down her chin as she concentrated on her cereal. I leaned over, brushing it away with a napkin. "Is it yummy, sweetie?" I asked softly. Yummy, she answered with a giggle, her voice so small and sweet it could undo me in an instant. Owen had already left. He always left early, his suit pressed, his phone in hand, already living in some tense, unreachable place. A financial analyst at a Portland firm, always tired, always pulled away. I had told myself his absence was sacrifice, that he worked for us. But lately, Emma's little body carried the truth I didn't want to name. Scrapes, bruises, marks that didn't fit the simple explanations I gave myself. Children stumble, I reminded myself. They trip, they fall, it's part of growing up. Still, something hollow stirred in my chest each time I noticed a fresh mark. One evening, Owen came home early. His voice was flat when he announced, "Meeting got canceled," before dropping onto the couch. Emma was already upstairs asleep, her stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. "I'm making dinner," I offered, hoping for a piece of the man I used to recognize. He barely touched the food, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen in his hand. The next night, Emma dropped her fork, the clatter startling in the quiet kitchen. His head snapped up. "I told you to eat quietly." His voice was sharp, too sharp for a child barely learning her words. Emma froze, her wide eyes filling with confusion. I scooped her into my arms. "You're okay, baby," I whispered into her hair, though my voice shook. Then I turned to him, searching for the man I had once trusted. "You're just tired," I said, as if saying it aloud could make it true. Later, when the house was still, I reached for him gently. "Are you okay? You've been distant." He didn't look at me. "It's work. You and Emma are the only things keeping me going." But the way his eyes slid past us told another story. A few days later, I came home early with a carton of fresh strawberries, Emma's favorite. I heard her before I saw her, crying, the sound raw, panicked. Then Owen's voice cut through. "I told you to shut up until your mom gets home." The grocery bags fell from my hands as I ran. Emma was huddled in the corner, tiny arms wrapped over her face, trembling sobs breaking her body. Owen stood a few feet away, irritation carved into his expression as though she were nothing but noise. "What happened?" I demanded, scooping her into my arms. She got loud. "I was working." His tone was flat, dismissive. That's when I saw the dark bruise blooming on her arm. "What's this?" My voice was sharp now. She slipped on the stairs. I grabbed her too hard, but I had left her safe in her playpen. His story broke apart before it left his mouth. That night I lay awake, Emma breathing softly in her crib while Owen's steady snores filled the room. My chest ached with fear so tight I could barely move. I didn't confront him. Not yet. The truth was clawing at me, but I wasn't ready to let it out. The next morning, I carried Emma next door to Carol, our neighbor. Carol was in her 60s, warm eyes lined with the kind of wisdom you only earn through years of watching life unfold. My words tumbled out, about the bruises, Emma's fear, Owen's sharpness. Carol lifted Emma's small arm with care, her voice quiet but steady. "This looks like a fingerprint," she said. "Were you there when it happened?" "I was in the shower," I lied, the shame thick in my throat. I wasn't ready to admit the whole truth, not even to myself. She laid her hand gently over mine. "Mila, sometimes the people we love hide the darkest parts of themselves. If you need help, you're not alone." That night, lying beside Owen, I stared into the shape of him in the dark. I could hear his breath, even, untroubled. But I didn't recognize the man next to me anymore. By Friday, I tried to carry on. I went to the mall with my friend Sarah, escaping into ordinary chatter, into the ritual of coffee and strollers and the illusion of safety. So, is Owen still in zombie office mode? She teased. Yeah, I answered with a practiced smile. But inside, the question twisted. Why was I still pretending? Why was I still cushioning the truth, as though my silence could hold our world together? We got home late in the afternoon. Owen had promised to work from home with Emma. Maybe this was his chance to show me I was wrong. But when I walked in, the house was unnervingly still. Not peaceful, but heavy with something I couldn't name. Hello? We're home. I called, forcing brightness into my voice. No answer. I found Emma on the floor, her breath shallow, gasping. Her skin burned under my touch, her chest rising and falling too quickly. She's fine. Just cried too hard. Owen called from the stairs, drying his hands as if nothing were wrong. She's burning up. My voice cracked as I gathered her into my arms. We need to call an ambulance. She's faking it for attention, he said coldly. Something inside me broke free. No, this isn't normal. For the first time, he looked at me, really looked, and there was fear in his eyes. Not for her, not for what he'd done, but for me, for my voice. I rushed Emma to the ER, whispering against her damp hair, Mommy's here. I won't leave you. I won't leave you. The medical team moved with urgency, oxygen masks, scans, needles. The room buzzed with motion, every sound a reminder of how fragile she was, how close I'd come to losing her. Then a nurse came in, wheeling a tray. Her hands stilled when she saw Owen step inside behind me. The tray clattered to the floor, instruments scattering. Her face drained of color. What's he doing here? She whispered. You know him? I asked, confusion slicing through my fear. The nurse, Jenna, stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. You have a wife. A daughter. Owen stepped forward, desperate. Jenna, I can't explain. Her voice trembled. You lied to me. The pieces snapped into place with a clarity that made me dizzy. The late nights. The distance. The marks on Emma's skin. How long? I asked, my voice steady though my body shook. Mila not here, he pleaded. How long? Silence. Then a truth that split the air open. 6 months. Jenna gasped. You told me you were single. Always traveling. That you lived alone. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, Owen muttered, but the words were empty, already ashes. I met his eyes, my voice cold. Not even your own daughter? When you yelled at her, ignored her, was she just another lie? He had no answer. The pediatrician called me aside, showing me Emma's scans. Small rib fractures, signs of internal bleeding. His voice was grave, unflinching. These aren't from a simple fall. They're from multiple impacts. Owen pressed against the wall, his face buried in his hands. I didn't mean, but I had no words left for him. I had crossed some invisible threshold. My silence was gone. I was done. Head nurse Paris pulled me aside while Emma was being stabilized. The hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic, the overhead lights sharp against my tired eyes. She offered me a cup of coffee, the steam curling upward between us, but my hands trembled so much I couldn't take it. Jenna's very upset, Paris said gently, lowering her voice. She told us she's been seeing your husband. The words hit me like a fresh blow, though I already knew. My voice cracked into a whisper. I just found out, and then everything spilled out. The bruises, Emma's fear, the late nights and the lies that no longer made sense. My shame, my doubts, the weight of pretending it was all normal. Do you suspect abuse? She asked, her gaze steady. I don't suspect, I said. I know. Later, Jenna asked if she could speak to me. Her eyes were swollen, the rims red, her hands shaking as she rolled her sleeve up. I've been dating Owen for 6 months, she confessed, her voice breaking. He said he was single, always working. But lately, he's changed. Last week, he grabbed my arm during a fight. The bruise on her skin mirrored Emma's. Same shape, same cruel imprint. My chest tightened, not just with grief, but with recognition. You're a victim too, I told her, and she lowered her gaze as if my words gave her a truth she hadn't dared to claim for herself. If he hurt Emma, it needs to be reported, Paris said firmly, her voice carrying a weight that filled the room. That was when Owen stormed in, his face red, his voice jagged with rage. "What are you saying? This is family business." "Lower your voice," Paris warned, stepping forward with a steadiness that made me grateful. "Stay out of it." "All of you," he shouted, his words cracking the sterile air. His eyes locked on me, wild and desperate. "You're ruining my life, Mila." I felt something in me shift, something quiet but unshakable. My voice came out steady. "You ruined yours." "For what? A kid who doesn't obey? That girl doesn't even respect me." "She's two," I said, my throat tight, my heart pounding. "She's two, you sick bastard." When he raised his hand, Paris didn't hesitate. Her palm slammed against the emergency button. The alarm rang out, piercing and final. Within seconds, security filled the room, pinning him down as he thrashed and shouted, "This is a mistake. She's my daughter. This is my family." His voice echoed down the hallway, but no one believed him anymore. 30 minutes later, the police arrived. They read him his rights, cuffed his wrists, and led him away on charges of domestic violence and child abuse. I didn't cry. My body felt too heavy, my eyes too dry. For the first time in months, the fog lifted. I could see him for who he was, and see myself standing without him. That night, I stayed at the hospital with Emma. She slept soundly for the first time in weeks, her little chest rising and falling in peace, safe from the man who once yelled at her for crying. At dawn, I caught my reflection in the mirror of the small hospital bathroom. My hair was tangled, my skin pale, but my eyes, they were different. I didn't see the worn sadness that had followed me for so long. I saw a raw, unshaped strength, rage, yes, but also the beginnings of resolve. What Owen had done wasn't just betrayal. It was abuse, manipulation, cruelty aimed at a child who couldn't defend herself. And something inside me knew I could no longer protect him with silence. I had to protect her with truth. Once Emma was stable, I sat down with a police officer and a social worker. Their voices were calm, careful. "The legal process is underway," they explained. "But for full protection, you should contact a family violence attorney." I didn't hesitate. By Monday morning, I was seated across from attorney Georgia Parker, a woman with sharp eyes and a steady presence that made me feel, for the first time, that someone was on our side. She opened her notebook and said without preamble, "You have a strong case, but if you want to make sure he never gets custody, we'll need more than medical records. We need a pattern." That word, pattern, stirred something in me. That's when I remembered the baby monitor. We had set it up months ago, back when I thought I was protecting Emma from accidents, not from him. I pulled out the memory card and slid it into my laptop. And there it was. Owen's voice rising, his hand grabbing, his temper unraveling. My chest splintered as I watched, but I didn't look away. Each clip was another truth I had once tried to bury, now laid bare. Painful, yes, but also undeniable. With George's guidance, we gathered everything. Carol's statement, Jenna's testimony and her bruise, the pediatrician's report, Paris's notes, even Sarah's observations of the growing tension in our home. Piece by piece, the picture became whole. From jail, Owen tried to reach me with letters, voicemails, flimsy apologies. One letter began, "You have no idea how sorry I am." But I knew better now. That wasn't sorrow. It was fear. Fear of losing control, of losing the hold he thought he had over us. Meanwhile, something inside me was shifting. I started therapy. Emma's laughter returned in flashes, bright, fleeting, but real. She still woke crying from nightmares, but she no longer flinched at every sound. I was learning too, that surviving wasn't weakness. It was proof of the strength I hadn't known I carried. A month later, the first hearing arrived. Owen shuffled into the courtroom in handcuffs, still carrying that thin veil of arrogance, the one he used to wear like armor. But when Georgia pressed play on the footage, the room changed. His shouts filled the speakers, his hand reaching, his rage undeniable. A chair slammed to the ground on the screen. His lawyer objected. The judge allowed it. Jenna sat across the room, her face wet with silent tears. I didn't feel pain anymore watching him unravel. I felt clarity. The judge turned to me. Do you want to say anything, Miss Smith? I stood, my legs trembling, but my voice steady. For a long time, I thought I was weak. I blamed myself for not seeing him clearly. But I know now, protecting my daughter wasn't fear. It was strength. I chose to break the silence. Owen looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time the mask slipped. His shoulders sagged. He looked small, defeated. 3 sharp strikes of the gavel cut through the room, sealing his fate. At the final hearing, all of it returned. Footage, testimony, medical records, his refusal to admit what he had done. The prosecutor laid out the pattern. Repeated injuries, deception, manipulation, a secret relationship, escalating violence. Owen sat sweating, shrinking further with each detail. Jenna's voice trembled as she testified again, painting the same man I had seen unravel in my own home. I held Emma close in my arms. She slept through it all, her small face peaceful, untouched by the chaos around her. The defense tried to soften the picture. Stress, no prior record, claims of love. Pleas for a second chance. But the judge's voice was firm. You're not here because of stress. You're here because you abused your power as a husband, a father, an adult. You left wounds, physical and emotional, that your daughter will carry for years. Silence fell. Then the verdict came, guilty of aggravated domestic violence and child abuse. 2 years in prison. No parole. No custody. No contact. Owen collapsed in his chair. Georgia touched my arm afterward. You did it. You did the right thing. You and your daughter are safe now. I only nodded. Relief wasn't what I felt. It was something deeper, steadier. Strength. The quiet beginning of a life no one else could define for me. That night, I tore up his letters, each page ripped into pieces that fluttered into the trash. I didn't need his words. I wasn't searching for closure or apologies. Justice wasn't fire or fury. It was this: safety, peace, dignity. A future where Emma could grow without fear. Days later, Jenna sent me a message. I know what you went through was worse than what I lived, but if you ever need me, I'm here. I typed back slowly, carefully. We're not rivals. We were victims of the same man, and we survived. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. A year later, sunlight poured into my kitchen, and this time it felt different. Warm, steady, alive. Not the harsh glare I once endured in silence, but light that seemed to breathe with me, filling the room with promise. Emma's laughter drifted from the living room, bright and unburdened, as she lined up her stuffed animals for a pretend parade. Her voice rose with joy, the kind of sound I once feared might disappear forever. I flipped pancakes in our small apartment, a place that isn't fancy, but carries everything I once thought impossible. Windows open to fresh air, walls that hold no secrets, silence that belongs to peace instead of fear. Mommy, look at the flowers. Emma's little finger pointed toward the daisies we planted in mismatched pots by the window. Their white petals stretched toward the light, delicate yet unshakable. They're beautiful. Just like you, I said, scooping her into my arms. Her laughter pressed against my neck, and I held her close. I hold her every chance I get now. Because you don't understand how close you've come to the edge until you've walked away from it, carrying the person you love most. 6 months ago, I went back to teaching. At first, I was terrified. Terrified that I wasn't enough, that the broken pieces of me would show. But my colleagues welcomed me back with patience, and Carol still steps in to help with Emma whenever I need her. Healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in fragments, small moments of courage stitched together into something whole. Owen is still in prison. In the early months, he sent letters, some laced with anger, others with apologies, promises of therapy, regrets scrawled across the page. I never answered. Not because of hate, but because I learned something. Forgiveness is not an obligation. It's a gift you give when your heart is ready. And I'm not. Maybe I never will be. What I know with certainty is this: Emma will never be near him again. A few weeks ago, a letter arrived from Jenna. She's building a new life in Seattle, working at a hospital, going to therapy, finding her way back to herself. She ended her note with, "Your bravery saved me too." I cried as I read it. Because in all the wreckage, something unexpected had grown, a connection forged in pain, but transformed into strength. Proof that even shattered lives can create something enduring. That night, after Emma drifted to sleep, I stepped out onto our tiny balcony. The city lights blinked below like a constellation of second chances, and a soft breeze touched my face. I thought about everything I had lost, but more than that, I thought about what had taken root in its place. Freedom, dignity, Emma's laughter filling the air, and the voice inside me I once buried. The voice that rose when it mattered most. The voice that saved us. Tomorrow, Emma has her preschool field trip. She'll wear her little pink backpack, too big for her small frame, and I'll be there. Not as the woman who once felt powerless, but as the mother who found her strength in the darkest places. I may not have the perfect life, but I have one built on truth, on love, on resilience. And that, to me, is the greatest justice. There is a voice inside us that cannot be silenced, no matter who tried to bury it. It may tremble, it may go quiet for a time, but it never disappears. One day it rises, and when it does, we find ourselves standing in the light again. Because survival is not the end of the story. Living, whole, unafraid, and free. That is where it truly begins. Have you ever been through something like this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Thanks so much for watching Rise with Sherry. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more.